Call this meeting of the House Ag and Natural Resources Subcommittee to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representative Cochran, Darby, Halford, Holsey, Hurt, Potts, Reedy, Shaw, Todd.
Present.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any personal orders today? Representative Reedy, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, it's over the weekend I got some news, and of course we've been fighting the constant issue with Asian carp in the state of Tennessee, but this report come out of Kentucky, a total of 9.5 million for year 2021 million pounds of invasive carp were removed from Kentucky waters. Of the amount, 8.5 million pounds were harvested from Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley. And of course, Kentucky Lake is my western boundary in my district. And of course, last time I was on that body of water with my daughter, we didn't catch any fish, but we saw a lot of Asian carp. But that just shows you the condition we're in with Asian carp. And like I've told many of my constituents, chronic wasting disease, Asian carp, and COVID are here for the rest of our lives. We just need to figure out how to live with it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, Representative Reedy. And I doubt that those numbers even included what me and my kids harvested with our bows and arrows. But it is significant, and I will mention that as sort of our fact of the day. There is a significant effort going on in this state to reduce the numbers of those fish, those invasive species, in our waters. We are supplementing the catching of those fish and the processing of those fish. They're actually an extremely good food source, and I know some folks that are currently working on expanding the markets that they're in. They are they're already producing fillets, which are extremely delicious, and I've actually served them side by side with crappie, which is one of the favorite fish of the state. And the Asian carp were preferred by every single person that I have done that with so far, which has been several. And I think one of the ways of making this species, bringing them under control, is by the food source. And we're providing more and more of that to our citizens. And I think there are folks that and producers that are looking at ways at providing even bigger quantities of the fish to the market for consumption. And one of those is in Paris, Tennessee. I've met with those folks, and currently they're selling fillets, and they actually don't even get enough fillets to supply the demand that they have. But the majority of the fish meat itself, they cannot get off the bone very easily, and so they're sending most of that fish then in chunked up form to the Northeast for bait, for lobster and crab fishing. So there's a lot of use for them, but they're working on a process now to get the rest of the meat off of the fish and put that into products such as fish patties. So I think that's one of the things on the very near horizon. And once we attain that, where we're eating a significant amount of those fish versus importing fish from other countries and other parts of our country, I think then we will see a tremendous reduction in their numbers to where it's sustainable. They're not hurting our game fish population and not jumping in our boats as much. So I appreciate you bringing that point and those details. Any other personal orders today? Seeing none, we will move on to the first bill on our calendar. This is House Bill 2761 by Leader Gant. Motion. Leader Gant, you're recognized. You have a motion and a second on House Bill 2761.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill is brought to me by Farm Bureau, and it's concerning a TASR study around our solar farm energy can't talk this morning, I'm sorry, around solar energy development here in the state. And this bill directs TASR to conduct a study regarding the implications of utility solar energy development here in Tennessee. The demand for solar energy is increasing exponentially, which means more solar production facilities will be built across Tennessee. Landowners are being approached with lease agreements to transition agricultural land into solar facilities, and very few laws exist to protect landowners from exploitation, damages, unexpected monetary losses. It is not Farm Bureau's intent to stop solar facilities from existing, but to better understand the issue by bringing all stakeholders together to determine what laws and regulations, if any, should exist to protect landowners and the environment. And that's what this TASER study should bring back, is some recommendations of how we go about that in our next General Assembly. And Mr. Chairman and committee, this report should be back. It says we've got it written in the language here that it should be back no later than January 31st, 2023, and it would come back to the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. So with that, be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Leader Gant. And Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leader, as this is just for TASA study right now, is that basic what this is?
Leader Gant?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Shaw. Any further questions? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2761. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full Ag Committee.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Next on our agenda is House Bill 2270 by Representative Ogles.
Motion. Second.
Representative, we have a motion and a second. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I just spoke to the Department of Safety, and there is an amendment I'm going to need to put on the bill. So if it's okay, I'd like to roll this 1 week.
Without objection, we will be rolling this bill to the next calendar. Next up, we have House Joint Resolution 755 by Representative Doggett. I'm not seeing Representative Doggett in the room. He may be in another committee, so we're going to roll that, without objection, we'll roll that to the heel of the calendar. We have House Bill 2186 by Leader Lamberth, Leader Gant, and Representative Rutter. Representative Rutter, we have House Bill 2186. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion and a second. You're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee people. How are you this morning? This piece of legislation was brought to me by the Department of Tourism. Currently, the Department of Tourism's authority to give grant funding to localities is limited to marketing purposes. This proposed legislation gives the Department of Tourism the authority to give grant funding to localities for tourism enhancement, tourism infrastructure needs, and other purposes related to promotion and growth of tourism. And with that, I will take any questions.
We have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2186. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 2186 moves on to Ag Full Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Members, we've had a request by the sponsor for House Bill 2637 to be rolled 1 week, I believe. Yes, 1 week. So without objection, we'll be moving that to our next calendar. House Bill 1690 by Representative Hurt is our next item. We have we have a request to roll that 1 week. Sorry, I missed that. Looking at the wrong line. So without objection, we'll be rolling that to our next calendar. House Bill 2150 is the next bill before us. I think Representative Hurt is carrying this one. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion and a second. Representative Hurt, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill basically makes it clear that the TCAT on the mega site can tap into any water that they need to, and separate from the mega site water.
All right. Any questions on this bill? I have one question for you. Is it water and wastewater?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that clarification. Representative Shaw, do you have a question?
No, sir.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we'll be voting on House Bill 2150. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. This bill will move on to Ag Full Committee. I'm going to pass the gavel to Chairman Halford for the next bill.
You're recognized on House Bill 2775.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll get my
I believe we
microphone.
have an amendment.
We do.
on this bill.
We probably need a motion.
I have a motion on the amendment. Have a motion and a second on the amendment. We're ready for an explanation of the amendment, sir.
Thank you, sir. This amendment makes the bill, and this basically directs the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency to set up a system of duck blind drawings within the wildlife management areas of the state. It has two different sections that apply to different types of blinds. The first would be the Tier 1 blinds that they're under current designation, the Tier 1s that the Commission has designated already. First, those blinds would be that have a random drawing held in person as they traditionally were in 2019 and before. They must not use a priority point system, so that if you enter the drawing, you provide the necessary license and permits, you are able to enter that drawing with the same chances everyone else in the drawing is. And it's only open to residents of this state who hold all required state and federal licenses and permits for waterfowl hunting at the time of entry, except the migratory fowl permit. That's a federal duck stamp, in essence. The agency also may install, and this is permissive, but we have been encouraging them to do this, install a blind or blinds in new locations within existing wildlife management areas, WMAs, to be designated as Tier 2 waterfowl hunt locations. Those blinds will be subject to rules that the agency promulgates, establishing a random drawing for that, and the drawing may be a random computerized drawing. So that gives folks from across the state the ability to enter these drawings for these hunts. Currently, the Tier 2s are hunted on a 3- and 4-day permit process. So it opens up opportunities to people from outside of the direct region around each one of these WMAs in order to hunt these on these short-term hunts. So we have had a lot of conversations with the agency about this, encouraging them to establish new hunt locations for people to truly create new opportunities for folks across the state, and where they're not necessarily able to go for a full 60-day hunt. Most of the duck seasons now are on a 60-day time period, which is set by the federal government for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The last section of this bill deals with duck blinds that are privately owned on Reelfoot Lake. When the Wildlife Agency took over management of an area of the lake, there were a number of private blinds that folks had been hunting out of for many, many years. They had built their blinds, they had invested a lot of money in those, and so there was an agreement made at that time that when the owner of that blind passes away, that blind would revert to the agency, and they could do with it what they want to. They've been putting some of those back into the full season draw, but they have the ability to take them out of the hunting altogether. And so what this addresses is what I and many others from across the state believe is a very delicate economic situation around Reelfoot Lake. They make money around Reelfoot Lake on two things: duck hunting and fishing. And so this addresses that, to where the folks that are guiding out of those blinds now, because most of these family blinds have a guide in them that are taking people from all over the country, quite literally, bringing them into that area, helping their economy, and providing a very neat service that they can't find in most other places. And this helps preserve that by taking those blinds as they revert back to state ownership. It would put them in an auction setting to where they could be auctioned off. The agency can make money off of that, and only guides, legal licensed guides with appropriate liability insurance policies could enter that auction. So this lets the highest bidder determine what each one of those blinds would go for in a very fair and open market setting, and allows those guides to continue their business, at least some guides continuing that business and bringing in that income for Reelfoot Lake. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions on this.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I tell you, Sunday afternoon, I couldn't eat my greens for talking about ducks. You've had me discussing ducks all weekend long. You know, and I don't know. It's hard to get a count to say more people want this or more people don't want this. But down in the area where I am, I got several calls about this legislation who feels uncomfortable with it, and they think that what it might do is privatize TWRA more than anything, because you just mentioned the fact of being able to purchase the duck blinds. I guess it would probably be folk who, and I probably don't even know all I'm talking about, but would have money to do that. So my TWRA people in my area really have some problems with this, and I guess what I'm wondering, and this is Johnny Shaw, is why this could not be settled among them if they all came together from, say, east to west and between, and just sit down and have a meeting and discuss this and talk about what would be best for all the hunters rather than just some of the hunters, if that's a fair question to you.
Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's certainly a fair question, and I hate that you missed your greens on Sunday because of this. And I've been dealing with this for probably 13 or 14 months. It's taken up an awful lot of my time. I've had representatives from many other districts have contacted me and said, we've got folks in Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee asking me about duck blinds, and I don't know anything about it. Would you talk to them? So I have folks from all over this state that have been contacting me about the issues with the new system that was put in place just this last season. And some of the ideas that have been brought forth, like the 3- and 4-day hunts, I think is an excellent idea. I think that's been overwhelmingly popular. The problem with it was we took the absolute best duck blinds in these WMAs and categorized those for these 3- and 4-day hunts, and we don't let anyone else hunt them if no one shows up to that blind. And traditionally, they've all been huntable every single day. If the permit holder is not there, then anyone can get in that blind. But in these specific blinds that are 3- and 4-day hunts, that's not allowed. That's against the law. So you cannot get in that blind if you're not the permit holder. So many of them, we're hearing, this is all across the state, have remained empty a good number of days of the season, which is reducing the opportunity for hunters. So all this bill does is says, we're going to keep that system. We're going to keep those blinds or that category of blinds, but those are going to be brand new locations, and you can have any rules you want to with those. We'll still give folks the opportunity to hunt in that manner for 3 and 4 days at a time. Draw by computer drawing, so you don't have to show up in person. You can apply if you're in Upper East Tennessee, and then just if you're drawn, show up on the day of the hunt without committing that blind to a whole season. As to the other point about privatizing, what we're doing is currently we're giving permits to use these public blinds. All of these are on public property, except for those at Reelfoot and another location or two that are private for a period of time. So we're not privatizing, we're just changing the type of permit they get versus if they're getting a permit now by paying their fees, they have their license, they have their WMA permit, then they get permission if they're drawn to use that blind for a certain number of days. This just says on those at Reelfoot that we're going to auction those specific ones off as they become available from this point forward. As they're privatized from this point forward, they would go into that auction system, and that's only on Reelfoot Lake, and the agency would keep that income. If that answers all of your questions.
Representative Shaw.
So you're saying this would only affect Reelfoot? Just Reelfoot Lake?
Representative Todd.
The last section only affects Reelfoot, where the current private blinds are reverting back to the state upon the owner's death. That's the only thing that refers to Reelfoot.
Mr. Chairman, and I'll be through. Let me just say, again, I represent the people of TWRA in my area, and I'm kind of just representing them. I feel kind of bad because, this is an election year. I don't want to go against anybody, but at the same time, I want to do what I kind of depend upon the folks at TWRA to keep me straight because I don't hunt. So I just kind of take that word for it. Mr. Chairman, can we get a roll call vote on this when we vote? Thank you.
I believe you will have to have 3 hands to call for a roll call vote. The sponsor can only call for a roll call. We will have a roll call vote when the time comes. Representative Todd.
Yes, if I could just respond to that. A lot of the issues that the TWRA staff you refer to deals with are biological issues, things that you and I may not know much about. They deal with setting limits. They do surveys. They know how much game is out there at any given time and what the harvest rates need to be for that game to be able to control the population and provide for a sustainable future for those species. This doesn't address anything to do with that. This has nothing to do with biology. This has nothing to do with management from the standpoint of wildlife at all. I don't want to ever get into that realm of where we as a legislature are stepping over that line and pushing those professionals to do something that goes against the science. All this has to do with is whether people have been represented or not, quite frankly. And many hunters out there, probably the majority that I've heard from, feel like their voices have not been heard. And last Friday, the commission voted to basically continue this program with very little changes moving forward into another year. Not only did they do that, but they did that after promising many of us multiple times over the last couple of months that we will get surveys. The hunters are providing surveys, and we're going to respond to those surveys. We're going to do what the surveys say. And if you watch the commission meeting, you will see where they did the opposite of that. They had the surveys in front of them that they'd been promising for months, and they did the opposite of what the survey said. That's what this addresses. The hunters have spoken. The agency said, the commission said they would honor the surveys, and now they're not honoring those surveys. So that's why I'm bringing this and why I'm continuing forward with this, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Shaw, did you have follow-up? No. Representative Halsey.
Thank you. Chairman, I talked to you yesterday about this, and your bill made perfect sense to me. I'm not a duck hunter, but it made sense to me. I don't know where the word got out that it made sense to me, but between the time I talked to you and this morning, they've lit me up. And I don't work for TWRA. I don't. I work for people in my district. And the duck hunters that contacted me since I talked to you said they'd rather keep what we got right now for a while to see if it works, and are adamant about me voting against your bill, and they all own shotguns. I just wanted to tell you that.
Representative Todd, did you have a follow-up?
I don't know how I can follow that one up.
Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, Chairman Todd, you just come out with, they had a meeting Friday, and they're not changing anything. Mr. Chairman, I request we go out of session and hear from TWRA and see what changes are made in comparison to what this amendment's trying to do.
I would be happy to do that, but TWRA is not on my list. There has to be 24-hour notice given before that can happen, so they're not on the list. You're recognized.
With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I move this bill to summer study.
Second. Proper motion, proper second. Without objection, we'll be voting to send Representative Todd. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. If I'm not out of order, I think, do I have an opportunity to speak on that motion?
Yes, I suppose that's the point we're at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would prefer this not go to summer study because I think we all know what generally happens there. This is a pressing issue that will affect many hunters across this state and many economies across this state. There's one thing I didn't mention a while ago is that when the agency and the commission put this in motion a year ago, they did not do one single economic impact study at all across the state to see how it was going to affect any of the areas, any of the WMAs involved here. We've asked for that repeatedly, and they have yet to provide that to us or the commission. So there's an economic reason to move this bill forward, and I would just encourage the members to vote against this motion for summer study. Thank you.
We're in discussion. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in discussion period? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting to send House Bill 2775, is that right, to summer study. All in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed say no.
No.
Clerk, call the roll.
Representative Cochran. Representative Darby. Halford.
Aye.
Holsey. No. Hurt. No. Potts. Reedy.
Aye.
Shaw.
Aye.
Representative Todd.
No.
Congressman, noes have it.
Noes have it. We're back on House Bill. I'm sorry.
Correction, the ayes have it by one.
Ayes have it.
wasn't in.
Bill goes to summer study. House Bill 2775 goes to summer study. Are we good, clerk?
Yes.
That's the last bill on our calendar, without any.
One was rolled, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there was. Back to Representative Todd. But he's still not here, is he?
Without objection, we're going to take a short recess and see if we can get the sponsor in here, maybe in another committee. We'll go out of session. Okay, we're back in session, and the sponsor has not been able to be located, probably has another committee responsibility. So without objection, we're going to roll that to the next calendar. Any other business today before the committee? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? We have a motion. All in favor, say aye. Ayes have it, we are adjourned.